Okay, welcome everybody. As you can tell, we are doing all of this, although this is our fourth WORAN meeting, it still feels new, it still feels different, and we're still rather working on the hoof and trying to develop things. So please bear with us as we work on everything to get it right. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, excellent. So welcome. I'm really pleased that you've all turned up. This is my introduction, and then we will move into the lightning talks. The intention is to do them in this order, but we'll see how Teresa is when Teresa manages to join us. We will go through the talks, and then we'll follow that with informal microgroup networking, which we will, I will explain more about when we get there. So just to say a little bit about our participants, to find out about you, we were going to do a poll, but Amy, are you tied up still? Are you able to run the poll, or are you tied up dealing with Teresa?
Yeah, I can start the poll.
Okay, so this is just to find out a little bit about you, and we hope it goes nice and smoothly. Will that just appear on the screens?
Yes, so it should be on everyone's screens now.
Right. So if you choose, excellent. Okay. Well, that's a pretty impressive mix, actually, because it probably more or less reflects the mix in the community. I don't actually know what the mix is, but it looks a great mix. I'm really pleased that we've got a mix of early career, mid-career and senior speakers today. And it's, I hope that the different people in the audience will enjoy that. So if we can end that poll, Amy, do we have the second one?
And then there you go.
Okay. So if you just, this is really to find out how much experience you already have of any of the things that our speakers are talking about. So I can see now, I hope you're all finding this as interesting as I am.
Can we see the results?
I can see the results. Could
we
you not?
We can't.
Oh.
No.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. I could see the results.
I'll share the results once it's done.
Amy, can you?
Yeah.
Share a bit.
Yeah. Once everyone's finished voting, I can share them.
Okay. Well, maybe we're on 90%, so maybe share now. This one, and I can tell you that the previous one, which you probably didn't see, was about 38% early career, 38% mid-career, and 20%. These aren't going to add up. 20% senior, and the remaining students. So nobody admitted to being retired, or did we have that?
Teresa should be in the room now.
Brilliant.
Excellent. Okay. So I saw that being voted on. It was very interesting. But I see, Jana, you're the one who's got the least, you're talking about fuzzy logic. You'll have the most naive audience to talk to. And I think everybody else will have a mix of knowledge and ignorance amongst their audience. So thank you very much for that. That's about you. I'm just going to say a little bit about WORAN online events that we've been holding monthly over the summer. I hope I am. I don't seem to be able to move on to the next slide.
I wonder, will you have to reshare your slides, Ruth, because of the polling?
Okay, I'll try that. Stop share. Share screen. It's all learning experience, this. Oh, I have to restart PowerPoint, it says. While I'm doing that, Francis, if I do that, do you want to just say a couple of words about WORAN while I get the PowerPoint going again?
Yes. So WORAN for about a year. We had a meeting at OR 61, and then we had a launch event in October 2019. And we were planning another event in March, just as lockdown started, which unfortunately had to be cancelled, but is being rescheduled for November. We don't know yet whether it's going ahead physically or whether we will move it online. But as lockdown hit, the committee got together and wondered what we should do. And Ruth kindly led the charge with organising a series of online events. We've done that once a month so far. We've done a variety of things, leading from the front with myself and Nicola, who is the diversity champion for the society. We spoke at the first one, so we talked about how we had survived lockdown. Oh, I can't remember what happened in the second one now. We had another one in July. Oh, yes, where we all split into different rooms. We picked topics and various have facilitated. So I volunteered to facilitate on being a single parent. A really popular one was on imposter syndrome, and we had a whole host of other facilitators. So we sort of split all these people that joined, like you are today, into different rooms. And now we have today's one, which is different yet again. So we've had a series of online events. We've also got an event at OR 62, which is going to be online this year. So hopefully in the coming days and weeks, you will see adverts for that. The theme of our session is OR in leadership, and we have a panel session on the Monday, the day before the main conference. So as you can see through lockdown, actually we've thrived quite well. We've had a real variety of people joining us at the sessions. So some of you may well have been to previous sessions, so you know the sorts of things that I'm talking about. One of the things I really like about our virtual sessions is we've had these virtual networking bits tagged on at the end, which you'll experience today, where Amy from the society randomly puts us into rooms with 3 or 4 people, and we get to chat to each other for 5 or so minutes. And Ruth's got some prompt questions on one of her latest slides to give us ideas of things to talk about. So I hope you'll find that as interesting, and that you'll meet new people. Sometimes you're in a room with people that you've known for years, and sometimes you're in with new people. So it really is quite good fun. Have I waffled on long enough for you, Ruth?
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to have to probably have to leave this meeting and come back because I can't get out of PowerPoint, but I can hear everything that's going on. So rather than trying to get my screen, I assume my screen's not in your way. And what I'm going to do is simply ask you to listen to each of our speakers. The idea is they each get 5 minutes. The audience will be muted while they talk, but at the end of the 5 minutes, if they're still speaking, I'm afraid I will interrupt them and stop them. I do have a timer, and I can set the timer going, though I will have to have somebody else, because I can't see anything apart from my own stuck screen. Somebody else will have to help with telling me when they've actually got started. Unless Amy, as host, you can stop my screen. No, you can't. It's me, not you.
Ruth, I've got the slides. If you want to go in and come back out, I can hold the fort. We can start the first speaker.
I think it would really be good, yes, if you could manage the first speaker. So the idea, we don't need the slides. I'll just tell people what's going to happen. Is Teresa, are you going to be okay with being first, or you actually you probably need to
now I've come online. Yeah, I'm more than happy to.
Except it might be that only I've got your slides. Somebody else?
Oh, I've got them.
Oh, great. Okay.
I've got them. I'm just going to share.
Great. Okay.
Hopefully share
So,
my screen.
So if I can just say, what I would like to do at the end of 5 minutes is stop the speaker if she's still speaking, but unmute everybody. If you could give the speaker a round of applause. This is an amazingly tough thing to do. I mean, I've broken out into a sweat because my system's not working, but I don't have to fit a subject that I'm really passionate about into 5 minutes for you all to hear and understand. So the speakers will have been doing something that's really amazing. So I hope you'll all be able to give them a round of applause while we're getting the next speaker up. We're not doing Q&A, but the speakers hopefully will have contact details available if you want to follow up anything afterwards. I think it's going to be really interesting. And yeah, I'm going to go out and come back in. And Teresa, I really hope I'm going to be able to see at least some of your talk. Timed by Francis. So over to you. Thank you very much, guys.
Bye.
Fantastic. Hi, everyone. Francis, my slide there, I think it's going to come up in about 40 different bits. So if you could click through until it looks like it's almost done, that would be fantastic. This isn't part of my 5 minutes, is it?
No. So I've got my timer up. Hang on a tick.
Yeah, 5 minutes is so hard, isn't it? When I wrote the abstract thinking, yeah, that's easy. And then when I came to do it, really, really hard. So I'm going to give it a go.
How does that look?
That looks like it, actually.
Brilliant. Okay.
A couple more clicks and then we're there. I think I can see a couple more on the end.
And another one?
Oh, no, actually, that's the third slide. If you wouldn't mind going back to the first one. Sorry, for those of you who have no idea what's going on, I couldn't connect to the meeting, so I've spent the last 20 minutes trying to get in. So my slides are in a different place and it's all a bit of a mess. I hope you can see me and hear me all right.
How does that look, Teresa?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, we'll hit start now. Yeah?
Yeah,
off you
brilliant.
go.
Thank you. So this first slide is just to give you a sense of the kind of stuff that I've been doing, to give you a sense of I've just been really, really lucky. So this talk was going to be, here are my highlights of the things I've achieved, and here is something that I really care about, which is helping people, and in particular women, to feel better and to achieve more. Having practiced it, I'm not going to spend very long on this slide actually. I've been really, really lucky. At the moment, I'm part of a team which is responsible for analysing the power sector and had a huge role to play in the decision last year to put a net zero target in place and what contribution the power sector and electricity decarbonisation could play in that. Previously, I was in Home Office. We had some amazing projects there related to, for example, exit checks, getting together millions and millions of customer records, people arriving and departing the country, and putting in place the systems to be able to analyse those. I've been so lucky. If you don't work in government and you want to at some stage, do come and have a chat because it's been phenomenal. If you could head on to the next slide, Francis. The thing that I really want to talk about today is I've been in OR for a long time. It's over 20 years now. I used to do proper analysis. I'm not sure I could do proper analysis now, but I oversee quite a lot of analysis. I've got a team of 50 people doing analysis for me. And the thing that I really, really care about, and the thing that I want to talk about, is unleashing the potential of people within the OR profession, and in particular women, and also people who cut across boundaries. I'm really interested in intersectionality. The reason I got interested in this was because I went to a Women in Leadership conference, and out of 1,500 women in attendance, mostly women, there were some men there, 1,200 signed up for the session that was about imposter syndrome. And that was the first time it really struck me that the things that I'd been feeling for 10 or 15 years, which is I'm not quite good enough, I'm not technical enough, I'm not confident enough, I can't speak, everyone else has a better view than me. That's something that's shared amongst a huge range of people. And being in a position of leadership and authority, it felt like it was my responsibility to do something about it. So the things on this slide they list some of the things that I now do as part of my day job. These are things that I find are really important and work. On the right hand side of this slide, I'm going to get this in before I get stopped. Feminist Fight Club. If you haven't read it yet, I would read it. It is full of amazing tips and moments where you go through and you go, yes, that happens. Why does that happen? So in the time I've got left, I'll pick out a few things that I hadn't really thought of before I started on this journey that are really effective. from that list. You'll have heard of things like mentoring and advocacy. But did you know that in meetings, for example, it's really common that a woman will say something, a man will say the same thing, and the man will get acknowledged for it. So as a woman in a senior meeting, I will sit there and say, yes, Tracy, fantastic point you just made there that John repeated. And I will make sure that I say those things so that people are heard and ideas are acknowledged to the person who came up with them. Other things that I try and do is I share experiences openly. So Francis earlier on was talking about being a single parent. I'm also a single parent. There are, all of us have life experiences. In my experience, the first 10, 15 years in government, the mainly majority white male managers appeared to have no life at all outside of work. And that was a barrier for me in terms of my own confidence. So one thing I do is I speak out and I say, yeah, actually, my children were crap this morning. I had a really rough morning, but now I'm on it and we're into work. And that just opens it up and makes life feel a bit more normal for those people who are also experiencing the same thing. Other really small things, make sure you send papers out before meetings. A lot of women don't have confidence, and being able to read the material in advance of a call, for example, can really affect their ability to contribute and take part in that call. So really kind of little bits and pieces, shadowing is on there, because giving women and others opportunities to see behind the curtain in a kind of Wizard of Oz type way, and just see that actually those senior people are just the same, just as rubbish and just as amazing as everyone else. That can help to break down some of those confidence barriers. Now, I think I'm up to about 5 minutes. This is a subject that really interests me. If you have other ideas, that's right, I'm not going to talk through the last slide. If you have other ideas, stuff which I haven't thought about yet, stuff which I should think about, if you'd like to talk through any of this stuff, please just give me a shout, because I'm really interested in developing this further, doing better every day, and supporting the next cohort, the next load of people, excellent women through to be amazing analysts.
Perfect.
Was I much over?
No. You literally finished as the alarm went off, Teresa. At this point, thank you very much, Teresa. At this point, I'll hand back to Ruth.
Thanks very much. Apologies to everybody apologies again to everybody for the slow start from my point of view, but brilliant set off, Teresa. Deborah, would you like to go next and start to share your screen?
Yeah. Share now.
Deborah is a consultant at Decision Lab, and are you ready to go, Deborah?
Yeah, can we all see my slides?
I can, yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. So yeah, I wanted to kind of talk today about some of the work we've done at Decision Lab, and yeah, the work we've done to understand the implications of kind of opening fast food establishment after UK lockdown, with the new social distancing rules and just the changes that have had to come into place. So, as I'm sure you're all aware, coronavirus has hit the UK. The first confirmed case was 29th of January, and by the 23rd of March, the UK got into lockdown. So this meant shopping for basic necessities only, going out for a form of exercise or medical needs. But this has caused shops, restaurants, leisure facilities, etc., to all close down. And then the process of reopening is not as simple as carry on before. So we're now kind of faced with this social distancing guidelines. So businesses now have to adhere to these 2 metre rules. So how do we keep staff and customers at 2 metres at all times? So therefore, we were set out the task of evaluating the implications of opening a fast food restaurant while following these new guidelines. So how would this affect the number of customers they're able to serve? How long will customers be within the store? How well will this 2 metre distance be able to be followed during that visit? So we chose to carry out this work using AnyLogic, which is a Java-based multi-method modelling environment. It's a piece of software we use a lot in the company. So within AnyLogic, we use the pedestrian library, which allows you to model and visualize how pedestrians flow within a physical environment. So the pedestrians move according to a social force model and therefore choose the shortest route and avoid collisions. So this kind of behaviour is defined by a process flow chart, like you can see there on the left. And you're able to define the queues, wait areas, serving blocks, etc., as well as the kind of physical environment. So, you know, the walls of the restaurant, areas you can't access, etc. But as you can imagine, this library is not that set up for social distancing. So that's caused some challenges. And so we had to build in this extra functionality whereby the pedestrians are constantly scanning the area around them. And if they ever come within 2 meters of another pedestrian, they readjust their direction in accordance to the direction of the nearest person. So you'll see in a minute, they all kind of bump around each other in the restaurant. But just kind of some of the considerations that had to have been thought about on the back of the reopening. So, you know, people need to be encouraged to spend less time in store, therefore queuing outside is now a thing. Can they encourage more customers to use an app and order prior to coming in the restaurant? There'll be more cleaning of the store themselves, reduced menus, so are there shorter service times to keep people in and out quickly? So in our model, there's 2 main types of customers, and these kind of follow different processes within and out of the store. So you can kind of see here, there's a bit of a flow of the process they'll take. So we've got different waiting areas for the public and the delivery drivers. The public are then encouraged to use an app instead of entering the store. And then there's different waiting and collection points in store, which you can kind of see on this diagram. So there is the queuing area here is for pedestrians who will collect here, for members of the public, and then delivery drivers wait in this separate area and have their own collection points. But if I quickly run through this video, you'll just be able to see kind of some of the pedestrians coming in and out of the store, going to the relevant points to either order in store or have ordered previously, and then exit again with their food. So on the right hand side here, you can see the kind of key we've got here for the different social distancing zones we've put around the agents, so you can see when they're within 2 meters of each other or 1 meter. So yeah, within the tool itself, we've kind of created these live KPI charts which give an idea of the social distancing conflicts while they're there. So that's, you know, while they're queuing outside the store or while they're in the restaurant. So you can kind of see that there's a kind of lunchtime peak where you're spending more time in restaurant closer to people than ideally is required. But yeah, in addition to this, there's also a set of outputs that we've created which kind of give recorded mean time in queue per hour, and yeah, stuff like that. But as a tool itself, then we've been able to give them the ability to carry out scenario analysis to test the performance of the restaurant under a variety of restrictions and parameters. So you can see here there's a few different parameters they can adjust to see the effects. So as an example, you can see how far you can increase restaurant capacity while keeping staff and customers safe. And then I guess what does this mean for the number of people that can be served in a day? How many staff do you need on shift at a time, and how much stock do you need to order in? So yeah, that kind of gives an overview of what we've done at Decision Lab. So if there's any questions, please drop me an email. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Deborah. That was perfect. Perfect timing. I was beginning to worry about the last couple of seconds, but you just made it. So really, really interesting stuff, and well done. And I'd love to know which fast food chain at some point, but yeah, maybe not yet. But thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Right, time to move on to our next speaker, Professor Maureen Meadows, who is, you mentioned scenario analysis right at the end of that, but Maureen is going to talk specifically about scenarios and strategy. So welcome, Maureen. Tell us when you're ready.
Thanks, Ruth. I'm just going to figure out how to share my screen. Can you see that?
Not yet. Yes.
Marvellous. Okay, I've risen to the challenge of Ruth suggested a lightning presentation with 20 slides and 15 seconds each, so that they move on automatically. So I'm gonna give that a go. So wish me luck, guys. I haven't done this before, so you're my guinea pigs. But at least you know if you don't like a slide, it's only going to be up for 15 seconds. So here we go. Hi, I'm Maureen Meadows. I'm from Coventry University, and my co-author is Frances O'Brien, who you all know and love. Frances and I have worked on scenarios for a long time. We're interested in how managers use scenarios when they develop strategy. Lots of surveys say that scenario planning is a tool that's used an awful lot, but they don't say very much about how managers actually use tools. We think scenarios play a number of roles: technical, analytical, social. I'll talk through that. We're really interested in the use phase of scenarios. So we're not looking at how you prepare to develop how you develop the narratives themselves. We're looking at how a group of managers actually use a set of scenarios to develop strategies for their organisation. And that's because the literature doesn't usually distinguish between the people who develop and the people who use the scenarios. And from our own practice, we know that the people using scenarios haven't always been involved in their development, perhaps for practical reasons. We've got some really good video data of strategy workshops of some managers using scenarios. We know how to analyse talk, so we can do conversation analysis on the audio, but what we've wrestled with here is how do you use the visual data, what people are doing. Our case study is a large company in the transport sector, a group of managers who are being promoted to a more senior level and being told to think strategically, and scenarios were therefore thought to be a useful tool. If I can just jump to, if you look at the 3 blue bubbles across the bottom of the slide there, what we're saying is that scenarios are used in 3 ways, or there are 3 phases: preparing and orienting, generating and working with strategic content like the strategies, and then reflecting on what they've done. Here's an example of some of our data. So we coded all the talk. So here's you won't have time to read it carefully, but here's a group debating whether something is an opportunity or a threat for their company. So they're orientating themselves in a set of scenarios. One thing we did, what this slide shows, is how much time people spent in the different phases. So preparing and orienting, the working with the content and the reflecting. We were surprised to find there was a lot of time in all 3 phases, actually. In particular, there was a lot of time in that first phase, the preparing and orientating phase, perhaps because the group hadn't been involved in developing the scenarios. They were just being asked to use them. So, and they kept coming back to how they should be using the scenarios. They kept coming back to the process issues of tool use. This slide just shows them moving to and fro. So at the top, you've got generating content, actually working with the strategies. And at the bottom, you've got the tool use questions about the scenario process. And they just kept coming back to scenarios, not just in terms of their content, but also their process. We had to make up how to do the video analysis. So here's a slide that shows what we did. We've got the transcribed talk down the left. We've got the 5 managers, M1 to M5 across the top. And we're noting what they're doing, whether they're sitting, standing, gesturing, moving around. So we're arguing that there are 3 roles for scenarios. First of all, a technical role. So they're thinking about the process of strategy development. They're thinking about things like, should we be thinking 2 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out? They're arguing about those things as they go through the process. The second role is an analytical one. So that's getting down into the strategies themselves, talking about opportunities and threats, starting to build arguments about what the company should be doing, being analytical, being logical, using their skills and their reasoning. And the third role is a social one, and we think this is really interesting. So the scenarios were almost an object for the group to come together around. They didn't necessarily know each other before. They didn't know how they were going to work together. They had some arguments. They fell out. They came back together. So there's a social role too. We think it's interesting because we've integrated the data analysis. We've done a bog standard conversation analysis to start with, just transcribing the talk. We've then done the video analysis that I showed you on one of the previous slides with the 5-second blocks, and we brought the 2 together. We think the video analysis really adds quite a lot, not because you can understand what the different managers are doing when they're not speaking. You can look at how they're using flip charts and post-it notes and all those materials. You can look at how they're moving, how they're gesturing, how they're bringing together different tools like the SWOT analysis and the TOWS analysis. So our first question was how they were using the scenarios. they kept returning to the scenarios throughout the whole strategy process. That was the really important thing, and using them in these different ways of technical, analytical and social. We think that coding the video data gives you so much more granularity, if you like. You can see what's going on in the room, including during periods of silence. You can see the social interactions. I've put my contact details on there because we're not doing Q&A in the usual way, so I'd love your comments and questions. Difficult ones to Francis, please. But we'd like to do lots of work, like on larger groups. Our group here had 5 managers. What happens when you've got a much bigger group? Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you for testing out. Oh, I better stop talking. Thank you very much for testing out the lightning talk system of every 15 seconds, which I hope.
I'm out of breath, Ruth. I don't know.
I hope the audience kept up. It's a challenge for all of us. It was great. Thank you very much indeed. And we now move on to our next speaker, Lucy Morgan, who's a lecturer at Lancaster University, but is not going to talk, I think, about her research, but rather about a project that she's been engaged in. But I'm sure, Lucy, you will correct me if I've got that wrong. Lucy, would you like to start sharing your screen and tell me when you're ready to go?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, great, okay. Let me just start the slides. Right, okay, ready when you are, Ruth?
Yeah, go.
Oh wait, I just need to put my timer on as well. Okay, so today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some work I did with the North West Air Ambulance with some colleagues at Lancaster University. If you don't know, the Air Ambulance, North West Air Ambulance, are based across the Northwest, and they've been running for 21 years. In fact, they had their birthday last week. And one thing that North West Air Ambulance are proud of in particular is the fact that they don't just convey patients from incident to hospital, they actually can take really advanced healthcare and medical expertise and equipment to the roadside. So it's almost equivalent to having A&E at your incident. The North West Air Ambulance have 2 base locations. So they have one in Manchester at Barton and one in Blackpool. And they have 3 healthcare teams, and they're spread across 6 vehicle assets. So one healthcare team is assigned to either a rapid response vehicle or a helicopter, 2 of which are based in Manchester and one of which is based at Blackpool. So when North West Air Ambulance came to us, they asked us, what can we do to improve when we operate? Are we operating at the right kinds of time of day to make sure that we're seeing the most people? So it seemed obvious to us to actually start by looking at where they did work, and it turned out that they worked all year round, but only during daylight hours. And in the winter, that means that they were actually really restricted on the hours that they could work, and most of that was because of the times that the helicopter could fly. So they were stopping at almost 3, 4 or 5 p.m. in winter. So what we did with them was we discussed what could they do if they extended their hours into the night, and what kind of schedules they could feasibly run, and what kind of assets they would have on duty if they could do it. So to actually try and go about answering this question, what we did was build a discrete event simulation with North West Air Ambulance. And the key to building that model was not actually just building the model, that was relatively simple. It was actually building up the trust with North West Air Ambulance in that model. So we went away, built one version, went back to them and said, are these the kind of results that you would have if you were working on a day-to-day basis? So we built basically what they do at the current time. And once we had trust in that model, and they could see that it was outputting what they currently got, we went away and started looking at nighttime missions. But that was a little bit harder because we didn't have any data on nighttime missions because they didn't do it at that time. So what we had to do was kind of infer what numbers of missions they would do from the North West Ambulance Service data, because all calls that come to North West Air Ambulance go through North West Ambulance Service. So taking that into account, we found that about 0.5% of NWAS calls, so the ambulance service calls, were taken by North West Air Ambulance. And then we had to think about limiting that a little bit more because of the kind of limitations on night missions because rapid response vehicles, for example, can't go to really distant missions, and air ambulances might be restricted by weather or whether a hospital has the landing facilities for them. So what we found was by looking at the limitations of the experiments we actually could do, so by reducing the number of arrivals and increasing the mission cycle times, we found in the end that in the worst case scenario that we looked at, which just looked at one rapid response vehicle asset being on duty at night, we would expect them to do about 1.1 jobs per night or 0.27 jobs per hour. And that was if they extended their schedule from finishing at 4 p.m. in winter to finishing at 8 p.m. So having that rapid response vehicle on for another 4 hours after their helicopters landed. And the impact of that investigation was that they actually decided to run a nighttime trial of missions, which was run between the 1st of February and 1st of April this year. And unfortunately, due to COVID, we were actually really severely impacted during that trial because Northwest Air Ambulance had to go and work on trying to get people to hospital and in the COVID kind of effort generally across the ambulance service. But from the small amount of data we did have, we saw that they in general saw about 0.33 jobs per asset per hour, which wasn't actually outside of the scope of the experiments we'd run with them, and kind of corresponded to looking at about a 25% reduction on the inferred number of arrivals they would have had if they kept up to that 0.5% of NWAS arrivals. And the jobs we saw were also across 5 counties, and there were a range of different accidents. So it was actually quite a good trial outcome. So what we're looking for in future is confirmation of whether they can rerun this trial to see if this is a long-standing kind of schedule they want to keep. Thank you.
Brilliant. Perfect timing. Thank you very much, Lucy.
Thanks.
Well, that's really interesting. And if any of our viewers are in the Northwest, I guess it's reassuring that you can carry on having disasters another 4 hours into the evening and still be reached. So thanks very much, Lucy. That's great. And now, if we move on to Jana Rees, who is a principal lecturer at Portsmouth University. Jana, how ready are you?
Yes, I'm ready. I'm starting to share, I think. And I just want to say that I did the same approach as Maureen did. So I timed my slides and we'll probably be out of breath halfway through. So let's see how that goes. Let me just quickly start the slides. That'll be good. Okay, so my name is Jana Rees. I'm working at the Faculty of Business and Law, University of Portsmouth. The work I'm going to talk about is sort of a collaborative work with with colleagues from Chile and from Italy. So I'm gonna, as I said, I've never done this lightning talk, so let's see how things go. I'm gonna start with this picture, which is me trying to bake and being utterly frustrated about instructions that say once they're golden brown, remove them from the oven. But if you think about it a little bit, it's actually probably the best way that you can give an instruction which is adjustable and adaptive to any sort of oven conditions. So in other words, it's a way of giving an instruction which is vague but yet helpful, and it's this kind of adaptive thinking that was sort of the basis for our approach towards a problem. It's a bit like birds; they don't know the exact day when they move to the south. They sort of start to feel when the conditions are there. So with regards to that, with this kind of level of ambiguity or imprecision maybe in certain places, moving this to sort of the logic we've used, and we've used fuzzy logic as Ruth pointed out earlier. Bertrand Russell already sort of made this comment very early in the century, where he said basically traditional logic really doesn't apply in certain circumstances. So what we do is we try to use fuzzy logic, a bit more of a imprecision. So we're looking at solving ambiguous or uncertain environments with an idea of a selector. Rather than have a particular algorithm or approach to solve a problem, we are selecting based on the environmental condition or the conditions of the problem. So we're looking at the container port, which is for operational researchers, I think, it's a bit of a paradise, because you have all sorts of problems. You have containers, you have trucks, you have ships, you have everything, resource allocations, storage space, difficulty, and so on. So we're looking at this problem. In particular, we looked at the port of Arica, which is in the north of Chile. Has the standard problems, resource constraints, as I said. It has traffic, it's only one road to get in. But the key thing about this port is it's in the north of Chile. So it borders to Bolivia and Peru. And the problem there is that if you look at this map, Bolivia has lost their sea access, their sea entrance in the South Pacific War to Chile. So what happens is that they have special conditions leaving their containers in the port for how long they want without extra fees. So there's a lot of uncertainty for Arica to make decisions on where to put containers. So we looked at this, what we call a container space allocation problem. So effectively, you're trying to put the container somewhere in the port to and ensure efficiency in that you don't want to have congestions within the port. You want to have them not having to mess around when you take them out. So you want to do that in a most effective way. So they're coming in from two ways, from the seaside and from the land side. And then what we are using is we're using several criteria. So for example, the weight of the container, the content of the container, the distance of the position to the gate, for example, and we're combining that using fuzzy logic as a multi-criteria decision analysis tool. What fuzzy logic does is it takes actually a crisp information, so for example, a precise distance, but it converts it into sort of a linguistic term. So it could be small, it could be a medium distance. And that allows us to then use a set of rules. For example, if a distance is small, then the position is probably very good. But if the distance is medium, then it's maybe not as good. And it allows us to combine all these very simple rules where potentially a couple of them apply. So a distance could be considered partially low and partially sort of medium size. So the idea of the system that we looked at was you basically have a container coming in. You don't have a plan, you have a container by container approach. You assess the criteria of the container, but also of the port that you know at that point of time. You then use a fuzzy system to find the position, and then you update the yard. The difficulty here is that you also have other disturbances in the port. So you have weather conditions that may prevent your ships coming in, you have traffic, may prevent your containers, breakdown of equipment. So what we did is we said, well, if we have a fuzzy system that applies for a certain condition, maybe it needs to be readjusted under different disruptions. So what I'm saying by that is that we're not using one particular decision support system that is fixed as one fuzzy logic tool, but we're sort of having a selection that we're choosing based on our knowledge about the risk of disruption surrounding the port. So we're basically having a container by container approach. So we have this real-time assignment. It's adaptive to the surroundings, and you can adjust them for other ports because you can add very easily additional criteria. So that's where we stand at the moment. We're trying to take this further in terms of as this is sort of still a very static approach in that the fuzzy systems are fixed at the moment, we're trying to use some learning ideas to sort of make them learn from the environmental conditions and sort of adjust themselves to get this a more dynamic approach. Because as we've seen with COVID, some things we just can't anticipate, some disruptions. We also would like to sort of include this in...
If you
okay.
Take us through, unless I press too soon, just...
right.
Final slide.
That's about it. So we basically try to integrate it further, and I like this picture because it shows this sort of, sometimes we perceive position a little bit odd, and sometimes it's not necessarily needed. So if anybody wants to discuss this further, please do contact me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I was going to say thank you very much. I like the way you snuck in, as well as an extra 5 seconds. You got in a bit of South American history, a bit of geography, a bit about how ships work, and also some OR technique stuff. So thanks very much. That was great. And now we come to our final speaker, who's travelled to be with us all the way from Vilnius. So thank you for making the journey, Ramuna. Ramuna, thank you, Ruth. Of actually of Danske Bank, but also on maternity leave at the moment. So she has, she's practicing for coming back to work with our closing session. So when you're ready to go, Ramuna, I will set up set my counter.
Just 1 second. Okay. I'm just trying to effectively flick through the screens and okay, share screen. Excellent. Now I think Nearly ready. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, excellent.
Excellent.
Go.
Very good. Can I go?
Yes, please.
Super. So my name is Ramona Shabaniana, and I moved back to Vilnius from the UK 3 years ago now. And currently I'm leading analytics initiatives at Danske Bank. So I have a team within financing product development, which essentially is digitalizing all the product issuing and issuing loans within Danske Bank. Some challenges you can see below, and you can see from those challenges you will be able to see why I'm talking what I'm talking about. Can we go? Yes. A very short intro through my journey within Danske Bank. So I called it a labyrinth, although it looks like a linear journey, but it's not. So I kept acquiring more and more responsibility and teams throughout my time in Danske Bank, and went from the mixed functional team when I started to now I have chapter lead and data science plus data engineering roles within financing development. So what were the challenges essentially within Danske Bank? What I wanted to share was the way that I guess overcame the challenges, because challenges are pretty much similar, you know, whether people believe the data, whether we have enough quality data. So the first thing that I did when I came in, I made sure that I understand the organization very well. So that included understanding talent. How many people do we have of various levels? Do we understand the culture? What are their ambitions? Do we know all the stakeholders? Do we have relationships? And I made sure that we actually start building as a team relationships with all of our stakeholders. We gathered all the want-to-haves and interviewed key stakeholders to understand the priority areas. We also understood analytics function better across the whole organization, knowing who does what, you know, so that we are not duplicating functions, so that we are making the most out of the resources that we have. How do we understand data quantity, quality? Where do we get where do we get certain data from? And then as another bit that was very useful in the long run was having an overview of ongoing projects within the organization, because some of them, when we got certain questions from the decision makers, we could actually recycle quite a lot of what I called parked projects and carry on insights from where somebody left it off. Second thing that I think is very important also whilst building analytic function is gaining trust. And the way that I approached it is building a roadmap, and roadmap to decision makers essentially was very good, gave a very good idea of where the department is going and where do we see the direction in the same way. So having an idea of the results that we are striving towards, having an idea of what talent will we need, and fueling collaboration were a few key items there. Second thing is process. So building trust within teams, building trust within analytical team, and building trust between analysts and other departments. If anyone ever worked in Agile, we work in very flat hierarchy, and we are working out constantly how to work flatly. And then obviously impact, making sure that we're making impact, and that was one of the key items that actually one of the key items that made a huge difference with stakeholders, being able to forecast their questions, being able to get them insights in time. And lastly, to maximize the impact, I wanted to keep changing the story that is being told about analytics. the stuff that I've been hearing when I joined was that there is no data is no good. We don't. Then from stakeholders, they said, well, I don't know what questions to ask because I constantly get the answer that data is no good. So through frequent small deliverables, through direct access to decision makers, through collaborating within the company from different teams and fueling that collaboration between different departments, we managed to actually change that story, and we keep changing that. And the result is successfully growing analytical function, more deliveries, more requests, increased amount of decisions that are being made based on the facts.
And a fantastic word to end on, Ramona, is success. So congratulations and thank you very much. That was brilliant. So thank you very much for concluding. And I think that was a perfect word to conclude the complete 6 sets of talks is success. Those of you who saw the, hopefully you all read the publicity for this event, which said it aimed to just cover a variety of the breadth of different contributions to OR and OR impact. And I hope you agree with me that that was a fantastic range of talks, taking different angles of the OR person's job, different types of OR, different people doing OR, as much as we could get with a mere 6 people. So can you all join me, if you can unmute yourselves, just to join me in thanking all of the speakers for putting all of that effort into something to us. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations to all the speakers. And I'll just say again to the audience, it is not an easy job to compress everything into 5 minutes and to do it on Zoom in these really weird circumstances. So thanks again. One of the things that you have missed from my slide presentation is the feedback form. So I don't know if anybody, if Amy or Francis could put the link to the feedback form into the chat, if you can find it. There will be a feedback form, and it'd be really, really helpful if you could fill it in, because it's what's helping us decide how to move forward with these events, and indeed whether to move forward. We have 2 events still to come, which I don't think Francis mentioned while I was sweating away, but she might have done. We have the day before the OR Society conference launches, so at 1 o'clock on the pre-conference day, we're really excited to have a Women in Leadership panel. And you know that several of our speakers today could have been on it, but in the interests of diversity, we have a completely different set of women leaders talking about leadership, and it's basically a Q&A session. So we hope to see a lot of you there. And then I think Francis did mention our 4th of November event, which may be physical or may not be. We have yet to work that out. But then we will start looking at continuing the program of online events. And if you've enjoyed that, I'm sure we're going to have another set of lightning talks, because how else would you fit in so many really interesting speakers into such a short space of time, and other events as well. So we're looking forward to your feedback. If you would like to leave us now, the feedback link is in the chat, so please copy that and load it in and start filling it in. We are about to go into the networking session. So if you would like to leave us now, if you don't have time to go into networking, or you just don't want to speak to other people, then this is your chance to move on. But if you and the only other thing I'll say to you is, if you're not a member of the WORAN, Women in OR and Analytics Network, do go onto the OR website. It's under the special interest groups. And if you join there, then make sure that you get the list of events as they come around. But we are then, if you're going to stay with us, Amy is going to put us randomly into groups of 3 or 4 people, I hope. If you have a drink to hand, I actually had one I prepared earlier, so I'm looking forward to whoever I talk to. The idea is that you will meet up with people. You may have met them before, you may not. If you haven't met them, then a quick introduction to yourself, what you do, as if you were the classic elevator talk, though of course we're not allowed in elevators if we can possibly avoid it, but a quick chat about what it is that you do. And then if you can find a couple of things that you have in common, that'll be even better. So spend a little time on that. And I think we've given you various end times for this whole meeting. If you look at different pieces of publicity, you'll see different end times. But I think we'll have 10 minutes, if we may, in the random groups. So Amy will set them up. You will see, if you haven't done this before, you will see an invitation to join a group coming up on your screen, and just press the join. Amy will set them up, and then after 10 minutes or so, she will bring us back into the main room for some closing words. So thank you all very much for joining us, and we will meet again in 10 minutes time. Well, welcome back. I'm not quite sure how many people we still have. We have fewer people with us now, but welcome back to you all. Thank you for staying. I'm going to say once again, thank you very much to the speakers, which it's a tremendous thing that you've done. Thank you very much to the audience. Thank you very much to all of you who will have filled in your SurveyMonkey feedback in the next as soon as possible time. And if anybody wants to say anything sort of orally now to the group, now is your chance before we close down, and hopefully see a lot of you again on the 14th of September at the Women in Leadership panel. But anything anybody wants to say before we go? Anything, Francis, that you want to add, or Amy? Amy's not here, I don't think.
Sorry, Francis. Francis. Ruth. Guys, Ben Kema here. So how does it work going forward? I mean, are you going to send invitations to individuals or what?
If your name is on a mailing list, you'll receive the invitations. So you have to join one of the networks to be confident that you're going to receive invitations, which means going onto the OR Society page and looking for the Women in OR and Analytics Special Interest Group. So, and that's the way they'll come.
Okay, all right.
So, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.